welcome everybody to the podcast number 4 for Nottaku. So last podcast was the Fate cast. We talked a lot about Fate, so we're going to move on to a new topic, which is
granddaughter, baby,
not BDSM.
Yay! All these things are true.
Hey.
Anyway,
hi guys.
We're going to be talking about the.
So since the last podcast, Hugh spent 30 quid on granddaughter.
Yeah,
That's a thing.
This is our store. So right, Hugh, care to explain?
Listen, what? Care to explain what? The fact that I downloaded granddaughter off the last podcast, and I'm rolling in good servants.
Because you spent money on it.
Also, the fact that there is somewhere a cheap blowjob off a Stoke-on-Trent turnpike worth of money located in the pockets of Mr. Fate somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere.
Oh yeah, I bought quartz. Absolutely, I bought quartz. That summoning gets addictive.
See, the worst thing I did was went for a shit at work and then realised I didn't need to shit, and so instead realised I could have 15 minutes of granddaughter.
Who takes 15 minutes to go to the toilet?
Mate, when you're at work and bored, you'll take as long as you fucking want.
Well, the worst thing I've done is I've entirely completed the Prisma Ilia event, like all 100 missions I've done.
Yeah, that's not a problem. It's a decent enough event that gets you good items.
So.
Should we? Is this our genuine opening, or are we starting
apparently.
Again? Oh god, Alastair.
Anyway, on to the actual topic of this podcast, which is we will be discussing adaptations. So the difference between the manga version or the light novel version and the anime, essentially. Is it a good adaptation of that said source material, or is it not? What's the difference? And whatnot. So
on this podcast, by the way, is Hugh in the form of Judas for his 30 silver. Ben,
hello.
The voice of reason.
Why am I the voice of? I have never.
Have you look at this roster.
No, he's the light novel man.
Lewis, do I need to remind you? I'm the person that last weekend, like you and about 4 other people sat around as I started thinking about something. When I think I'm going to torture them, and you went, "Oh, Ben's sadistic again."
Yeah. Then again, I'm the enabler, Lewis, who put you into that situation, and then we've also got Alastair, who one day we are going to send on his birthday like a body pillow or something. We're going to come into his room and it's going to resemble a spider's lair. Like,
oh Christ!
I don't
waiting...
like the spider ones, so no.
You missed that joke.
Right.
That went over someone's head.
Whoosh.
Is it bad that I'm disappointed you didn't let us introduce ourselves? Because I spent a good 10 minutes before we came on air thinking of an introduction for myself.
Well, Hugh, it's not like we do these every fucking week.
But this one was to do with light novels and everything.
Oh, fine, run it,
Go ahead. Everybody introduce themselves then.
You've built it up so much that you get your own special little line now.
We will all be perfectly silent till you say it.
Alright, fine, I'm Hugh. I'm the podcast equivalent of an isekai adaptation. I'm always there, no one really wants me, but you watch me anyway. Now do you see why I wanted to say it?
Yeah, I'm like the Berzerk adaptations, either very stilted, look awful, and I like retarded women.
I'm like a book, no one really looks at me anymore.
That was dark.
It would be sad
Unless
if it
I'm
wasn't
online.
Oh.
But the fan adaptations are so much better.
Oh god.
Yeah, I'm your classic harem anime. You either love me or you loathe me.
No, that's not the classic harem anime. The classic harem anime is where everyone's mystified that they still exist, but yet they persist.
You're the classic harem anime, completely full of tropes, yet somehow people still look at it and go, huh.
I think, Ben, to be fair, I think you're a bit more like the Goblin Slayer adaptation. A lot of hope rides on you, but I think we can all accept the fact that one day you'll disappoint.
Oh.
My girlfriend agrees.
Hey, baby. And that leads.
Shout out to Kate.
What the fuck? Did anyone else hear woke Hugh for a second?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
What the fuck? Shout out to Kate. Also
Right.
shout out Phil, Postman Love. Right, anyway, Alastair heard these cats.
Yes, let's get this started before this turns into like 5 hours. So I thought we should start off by discussing the simple question of when you watch a show, you can generally tell if it's based off a light novel or if it's based off a manga. You can normally tell. So
Can you?
Yes.
Is that because
Yes.
you read the wiki
Yes.
before?
No,
you can normally tell. You can't really tell so much with manga, but you can tell if it's a light novel adaptation.
Is it split into convenient arcs that
With
are
have
very obviously
climaxes at
distinct?
the end.
Then it's a light novel. Then it's obviously a light novel adaptation. Is it split into individual arcs, but somehow flow into each other a lot easier, and there isn't quite as much significance?
Or all the
shut off,
episodes kind of
then
stand
it's a
alone.
manga series.
Alright, should we actually answer this by
Yeah,
person?
But the problem, see, I still think there's enough anime that does that without being an adaptation of something that it can still be confusing.
I suppose.
I think there's usually a good indicator because, like, I mean, we can actually look at some good examples, like good shows that are examples of this. Because I would argue that both Clannad and Steins Gate, both of which are favorite series of mine, are so patently obvious they are based off of their fucking like ancestors in the form of visual novels. Purely because the first half of the show gets out of the way, and then it's like we will now follow this girl for 2 episodes, then this girl, then this girl, then this girl, then this girl, and back to the first one for the second season. Like. It's very indicative of that, I'd argue.
Yeah.
I mean, visual novels are more obvious in the sense because it's always the classic thing of, oh, you have several girls. We're just going to take each one in turn, and the main character's going to solve each of their problems in sequence.
I don't know, like,
But
did
that-
a good job with that.
Yeah, I was like,
That's also a horror anime.
bafflingly, School Days actually did this quite well.
Wow. Oh my god,
Dude,
right.
nice vote.
Nice bow. Nice.
Pretty good.
I love that meme so much.
I will defend School Days anime. It's not bad.
I won't defend the anime. I will defend the HQ version of the visual novel because it is literally a anime where you pick choices partway through and it leads to a route, and it's just like watching an anime where you actually get to decide what happens.
Isn't that just a visual novel?
No, because it's an actual like full
It's
animated thing.
It
Like it's an anime, and it's fully 100% animated.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep, and voice acted. Yep, not a single frame.
I take my snarky comment back.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's also quite enjoyable and quite ridiculous in some of the endings. But to be fair, if you get to those endings, you deserve it, you piece of shit.
Well, yeah, that game
first-
is literally a test of how faithful are you to your girlfriend. 'Cause it doesn't matter which one you pick, but if you stray from the path even once,
Well, no, the thing is, you end up with one inadvertently because you have a crush, and then you can kind of come to realize that actually you prefer the girl that helped you get with her because you had much more time spent with, and it's not just a crush. You actually like her for her, and the reveal that
puss.
I'm just getting flashbacks to that one episode of Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun where they all realise that the guy that's helping them out in the visual novel is the best one.
I fucking love that episode. It's also great Nozaki-kun's ridiculous answers and decisions in every situation.
I did like that one time we watched it. Yeah.
They wrote him the happy ending though.
I also like that Alastair has just been quiet for the last 5 minutes, just watching us, getting ready for the DxD.
Oh no, I'm waiting for that until later. I'm gonna wait until you guys are tired.
DxD mean the FREE.
What?
Exclamation mark.
Free.
Oh,
He literally, like Alastair, he spelled out a 4-letter word. Come on.
Well, yeah, but it's because that show doesn't exist in my mind because it's only got men in it. So
Me and Alice just sat there for like a good 5 seconds going,
Fucking Ben's there. It's like this really special person. I'll talk about state Hugh, and Hugh's just there, like literally, just like fucking, I don't know, throwing peanuts at children. Like,
no, Hugh sat there with his shirt up over his belly, slapping his belly with.
No. I'm sat in the corner, and Lewis just walks in and just goes, "It's time for his WALK."
Man, people who do that with their dogs and are like WALK instead of walk so the dog doesn't get excited. Like, if the dog can pick up what walk means, they're gonna pick up what WALK means.
You
after
would
a
be
year.
surprised.
It's like, okay, Hugh, it's time for you to go get your shots. It's time to go to DIGNITAS, and they're just there like, I want to go.
What is this? It sounds exciting.
Anyway, speaking of
should we actually get
the Berzerk adaptation.
onto the topic at hand?
Oh no, it's already become a clusterfuck. We've mentioned about 7 things in the space of.
Alastair, direct the podcast. Wrangle the cats.
So, how should we do this? I should have probably discussed this before we started. Should we do...
Lewis, why is Berzerk the greatest slideshow ever made?
Yeah, we can start with that.
Alright, let's open up. So Berserk 1997 is the Berzerk adaptation, and it adapts the Golden Age arc, right? I will make my hypothesis now, and I will slam it on the table, and I will watch it as it generally rests there with everyone looking at it.
Can we start with a basic question, Lewis, just before you go into this?
Yeah, sure.
One that actually intrigues me. Have you, and if so, how much have you read of the Berzerk manga?
I have read a fair amount of the Berzerk manga.
Okay.
I got past the Golden Age arc. I got basically, you know where 2016 and 2017 Berzerk adapted. I got just
the Black
past
Swordsman arc.
Yeah, I got past Black Swordsman arc, and then I think I got to them on the boat, and then I stopped there because I knew what the meme was, and I was like, I can't be bothered to read from this. I have read a fair bit of Berzerk, and my hypothesis that I will lay on the table now is that I think the slideshow anime have got a place in the modern world, and that the only reason that people dislike them is because they're being animation snobs for the sake of it. And more to the point, as a consequence of that, Berzerk 2016 and 17 is the anime community's fault.
Ooh, wow, big thing.
That is my hypothesis.
Big talk from
So from what I'm gathering is you're essentially saying that because the anime community complained that Berzerk, 1998 was the greatest slideshow ever made, they felt the need to do an animated adaptation, but in the cheapest way humanly possible.
Yeah, so
just to appease the masses.
I have show notes. I decided to look up what the cost of Berzerk 2016 was, and how its budget was, and I compared it to a good 3D show like Land of the Lustrous. And
I love Land of the Lustrous.
It's fucking amazing. I love it.
It's
good.
awesome.
Anyway.
So I didn't actually watch it, but by reputation, I knew that it was pretty fucking good, right? I look. And I is really good, right? So I looked up the Land of the Lustrous, and apparently they made that on the cheap. Right,
really?
they made Land of the Lustrous on the cheap, right? But it still looked good.
Yep.
But 2016 received the average amount of money for an anime run. They received $2 million for their 12-episode runs. Okay, so it just goes to show that with money, it doesn't really matter, because you can with a decent enough team, you can make whatever you want to. Berserk 2016 and 17 looks like dog shit because people have complained so much throughout Berserk's history about its lack of animation, and I think the response of the studio was, the only way we can placate people is by having the whole Berserk kills 100 people, or Berserk kills the fucking demon, or like fucking, Gatsu gets in the fucking Berserk armor. But the problem is all of that would cost such a horrendous amount of money to, like, air quotes, faithfully animate, because the thing that you don't see in the manga is you don't see let's say fucking, for a single clang, let's say that lasts 2 seconds, even if you're going for a vaguely respectable, like, animation looking thing, that's at least 32 frames, and if you want that to be beautifully fucking drawn, that's 32 of, some of the most painstakingly constructed manga ever drawn. And so you go for the cheaper option, which is 3D, pray it looks good, and it looks like dog shit, and it just does not work in that kind of extreme, fast-paced, picturesque action.
But you said yourself Land of the Lustrous worked with a lower budget, though.
It did work with lower budget, and that's because they actually kept their expectations good, and people weren't constantly reeing on them, because, like, oh, we need the fucking, like, you need the adaptation of whatever the fuck, and they decided to make Land of the Lustrous...
Berserk, please.
Yeah,
but why? But surely that means that they should have put more time and effort into it than the less that they fucking threw out.
I agree.
I agree.
That show was just widely not cared about. You see some of the episodes in like the later season, the second season, and there's bits where it's like, oh, this character is now changing into this other character. It's where who's Nosferatu Zod. Nosferatu Zod. He puts his hand.
Oh my god, that's the worst.
And then it doesn't even transform like properly. It just goes. And
it just slops.
It just
and the guy's head explodes.
Into it, and then gets his head crushed. It's also like when you've got these like demon henchmen that are in the back, but they're talking, but their face and body are completely still, and it's just like muppeting.
See, here's a response I would like to say though, is that I think it is possible to make a good Berzerk anime adaptation. It's just so horrendously expensive, because if you look at the opening by 9mm Power Bullet, it's actually really
so
fun.
Good.
It's a really
good.
It's gorgeous, and the thing is, it's not even gorgeous because it's a good slideshow. It's gorgeous because it's got good choreography. I maintain you can absolutely make a good fucking Berzerk adaptation using traditional animation methods. The problem is, it is going to be so prohibitively expensive and be such an enormous project, no one wants to take it. But everyone wanted a Berzerk thing, so the animation studios went, fuck it, here's $2 million to make Berzerk. And to be fair, I obviously didn't work in that fucking studio. Like, I agree, they got fucking lazy. I think those are the frustrations of reasonably frustrated people who are given a pittance of a budget and were told to animate one of the most beautiful drawn things ever.
Arguably the greatest manga ever written, and I know that's like
no, straight up, I agree with you. Straight up, like objectively, is the best one.
It is my joint first favorite manga.
I think another big issue they essentially had was they were picking up from two projects that are well received by those that actually know what they're talking about, and really hated by others. So the 1998 anime people don't like because it's a slideshow. The 3 movies people didn't like because it was CG anime. And so they pretty much were picking up from 2 adaptions that are both good, but had their problems people held them up against.
Exactly, and it's the fact that people want a Berzerk adaptation, but companies are not going to fork out that amount of money for it. But the demand is there, so they try, and that's what goes wrong. Now, I'll say that 1997 also is beautiful, and the thing is, the reason I come across this snobbery is because I've been watching Shinsekai Yori recently.
Yeah. Digibro's most recent video on that just didn't me.
I haven't actually seen that one, but basically, so I was watching it because of an upcoming project, and basically, Ben messaged me saying that this thing wasn't terribly popular at the time, and I was like, why? And he said that the animation kept on getting slated.
Boys.
Oh yeah, fuck, no, that's fine.
That also gets shouted out. Yeah.
That gets shouted, but we'll talk about that.
That's what we'll call the Alastair syndrome. So
yeah.
But
we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, this is good material for later. But people complained about the animation. I was like, what the fuck, you're right. And I looked up a r/anime, which is always a bad fucking situation, for the episode discussion, because I missed the detail halfway through the episode. I didn't want to rewind. So I looked up. Oh my god, everyone was complaining about the animation. And I mean just about everyone. Which is wrong, because it's fine.
Which is also incredibly strange, because now on our anime it's like a gem that everybody holds up as being great.
Yeah, and the thing is, you look at it, and there's this one guy in the comments, and I will forever love this guy because he had like 2 upvotes, and I gave him another. But he was like, "Am I the only person in this fucking thread who does not give a shit about this animation?" And I think it is genuinely people were just circle jerking over it, and I think that is the problem. I think it is the community's attitude to animation, where they're like, "We need to have animation in such high esteem because we do, because that's what everyone else thinks." And we've got a friend who, and I'm not going to name names, holds that animation in very fucking high esteem. And he would complain about it.
But, you idiot.
But it feels like Oh, sorry, but it feels like all the other aspects of the show do not matter in the face of this animation, and it's like you look at a visual novel or something, and that's got style, it's got good art most of the time, but it's still sprites. I mean, like, just go onto any CG website, and you can see just how few pieces these guys have to play with. NGE has arguably got terrible animation in places because they used it on the great animation in other places.
NGE ran out of money. NGE ran out of budget for some of its animation and created some of the best scenes as a result of it.
Exactly,
because it used it in the best places.
Limitation creates art, and the thing is, and you look at the original Berzerk 1997, and you see that where they've got these beautiful still like paintings almost that someone's clearly put a lot of effort into, and they will use every camera trick in the book to make sure they hold that shot for as long as possible.
Yeah, but the problem with that is they don't have the moments of brilliance that make you happy.
True enough. I will concede. I'm not for a second saying that 1997 is good due to its lack of animation. I'm saying it is good despite its lack of animation. And you look at other shows, and it's like you look at something like Guilty Crown, which is the most beautifully animated thing ever, but it's writing shit to bed, and it gets crucified for that. But it just feels like people can look at a detail, crucify something, and it just doesn't matter, because you then look at something like NG where they ran out of money, the animation turns to dog shit, but people are like, but it's clever because of this, the writing's good because of this. Now, I love my NG, but it's just that circle jerk, and there's so many good examples in the modern day of people using these techniques. The example I gave to Ben the other day was Yakuza has got several different cutscene styles, and one of the most effective is where the two of them are stood completely still next to each other, still voice acted, and the text just plays across the screen as they go, and it makes
this is Yakuza 0 specifically.
Yakuza 0, yeah, and it creates a sort of diorama effect. Of this time period, like Monster, which is also another like very well loved show, and it is this circle jerk which created 2016. I maintain this. Like, it is this snobbery about animation that has appeared. And I don't know where it's come from in some ways. I don't know when it started. I mean, you look at some of the original like 4Kid shows we grew up on, and hey, those aren't exactly the bastions of good animation. But like, I swear to God, people have thrown anime onto subway platforms for looking less bad than Pokemon the original did, and that is still a loved show to many people.
I remember when Berzerk the second season was airing, and there were people who were still trying to like defend it in terms of this. So when the episodes came out just before the Berzerk Armor episode, they were being like, "Oh no, don't worry, the animation's terrible because they're saving their budget for the Berzerk Armor." Now, and like, people were just trying to find any reason why this wasn't good. Like, people had accepted it wasn't good, and they were just trying to find the reason for it.
Now,
and I thought that was fascinating.
See, I get this, but Lewis, in counter to your argument here, I too came prepared with facts for Berzerk.
Excellent.
And I don't think it's the fans' fault in any way, shape, or form, and I don't think it's any fault of anything with regards to this, because if we take the top-selling manga, like the highest volume sold and the highest amount sold of manga, Berzerk has outsold Yu-Gi-Oh!, Sailor Moon, Saint Seiya, Tokyo Ghoul, Death Note, Kuroko Basket. Berzerk has outsold all of these, and yet each of them, respectively, has received a well-animated adaptation. And so there is no reason that any company should not turn around and say, no, this will not sell, no, this should not have a budget. And so blaming the fans for Berzerk, the problem is people not giving a proper budget for this show.
I blame that too.
Not due to the fact of the fans. The fans have nothing to do with it. And the fact that it's an incredibly high-selling show doesn't mean that it shouldn't have a faithful adaptation, because Death Note's adaptation was pretty solid, and that lasted fucking ages. Sailor Moon lasted ages. That was great. Yu-Gi-Oh's had so many. All of the, like, Tokyo Ghoul had its own original adaptation and stuff done, and has had multiple series and multiple spin-offs that have been done. But then you look at other shows that are higher budget than Berzerk, such as that have sold more, like Attack on Titan. That's died off and still gets more budget at this point. You've got Hajime no Ippo, which gets an incredible amount of budget and incredible amount of sales. Full Metal Alchemist, Fairy Tail, all of these things keep getting them, and Berserk is pretty much smack bang in the middle of most of these that I'm listing. And so why is it the fans' fault that Berserk doesn't get adapted there, but all these other shows have got adapted, when in some cases they're under much more scrutiny for the adaptation, such as, for example, in the top 10 selling manga of all time, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I honestly think that the project itself is potentially cursed, that you've now had 3 adaptations when none of them have been well received by hardcore fans. And I think when it came down to making that 3rd adaptation, they were looking at those first 2, and they must have just been terrified to think we are picking up one of the greatest mangas of all time with these things that people have problems with. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know why they made the choices they did. I don't know why on a normal budget they created what they did. I don't know why they somehow decided to make a 2nd season of it, which somehow made it worse. I don't know, but I feel sorry. At the end of the day, I don't think any creator in any team of creators genuinely doesn't want their project to be good. I think every single creator
one sets out to make something bad.
Yeah,
no
it's
one.
just so I don't know what happened to them. They clearly tried.
That's the thing.
Ben, before we get down the rabbit hole, do you mind if I respond to the previous?
Oh yeah, sure thing.
Yeah. I will say, I think that you are absolutely correct in the sense of he has just not gotten the fucking budget. That I'm not disputing for a second. What I am disputing is the fact that I think that the budget, right? So say for example, Berserk gets the most massive budget in the world and gets a fantastic, the entire thing is fucking Sakuga like adaptation of the entire thing. That's not just the Golden Age arc, right? I absolutely agree. That would be amazing. I don't think we're in that world. I don't know why Berserk doesn't get the budget that it does. The point I'm more trying to make is the fact that a studio was handed a fairly average budget, and it shouldn't have been handed an average budget. I'm not contesting that. I'm saying that they then misspent their budget on trying to make something that looked beautiful animation-wise, or at the very least tried to look action-packed animation-wise, which was never going to happen. I'm saying that their mismanagement of their money was down to anime fans. I'm not saying that their allocation of their budget was down to anime fans. So... Did you see where I'm coming from?
Well, see, I raise you the same argument as with regards to Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul's animation is really nice. It's really good to look at. Everything about it is beautiful, unless you're watching the one where you only get to see a pixel of your screen because it's blacked out due to censorship.
Never is.
but their alteration of the story and the way that they adapted things and presented characters is what really pissed people off and what people hated. And so that's the polar opposite of the Berserk problem, but something that still received, a decent budget. But would you blame that down to the anime fans there on that version? Because
I don't know why. I don't know why they would take. See, this is the problem that we're having, isn't it? We're speculating on shit that we just categorically do not have the information for.
We are not anime insiders. We do not know.
I don't know why they changed the plot, because I mean, have you read Tokyo Ghoul, Ben?
I have read Tokyo Ghoul.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, were the changes like from particularly action-packed scenes, or were they just fairly arbitrary? By the sound of things, fairly arbitrary.
It was fairly arbitrary for the most of it, and
so
I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed season 1 just as watching a really nice animation and an adaptation, even if it's not faithful. The same way I enjoyed the original Full Metal Alchemist. Like, Brotherhood is infinitely superior, but I enjoyed the original Full Metal Alchemist for an adaptation of a manga that I loved.
That is fair enough.
Well, Full Metal Alchemist has a different problem, though, the fact that the manga wasn't finished when they made that first adaptation.
That's a classic problem.
Which is the one of the points I will love to bring up later of the Akame ga Kill problem.
Yeah.
So I think I might have stumbled onto something, because I'm currently looking at the Berserk adaptation and the studios that made it. One studio, it's the first thing they ever did. That Studio Gemba. Yep. It's the only thing they have currently done. The other one is Studio Millepensi, and they the only other shows they have done are the however many 100 seasons of Tekkyu there are. Wake Up Girls, and something I don't even know what this is, called Usakame. And I think looking at these, none of them look particularly high budget, stellar adaptations. So potentially the
wrong studio, wrong
I think
time.
it was wrong studio, wrong time.
Well, if it's wrong studio, wrong time, that does go back to your other point, though, Hugh, of how the fuck does lightning land this badly 3 times?
I don't know, and this is why I'm
Like, just
because
like,
I will be honest.
I'm of the opinion here that you just like get several million fucking dollars, throw it A1 or your photable, brush your
Yeah, I was
hands,
gonna say,
and be done with it.
Yeah, well, probably throw it at your photable is the thing that everybody says. Everyone's just like, a Berzerk annotation by your photable. Everybody wants, except for Ben, apparently.
But I think Ufotable are fantastic at adapting things when they've got, you know, people on board with regards to them and what they're doing with their animation, and their animation is absolutely stellar. But it's a case of, would they be able to do it for such a long-lasting show that would keep on for so much without leaving it on infinite cliffhangers over and over again?
Yeah,
it's.
I appreciate the bait, Hugh. I'm not touching Generabuchi just yet. Funnily enough, I'm waiting for the Generabuchi worship for later on in this podcast.
Well,
I would love to see some episodes of Berzerk done by Ufotable. I would love to see them. I would love to see them animate certain scenes. However, as a whole series, I do believe that it would last too long, and they'd still have to cut corners story-wise, and would get slated for it, which I feel.
And then people would complain, and
everyone would complain due to that. And the only way to do it is to do it in a long-lasting.
I think people are after a silver
Brotherhood sort of.
I think people are after a silver bullet for this show that just doesn't exist.
I also think potentially a way of doing it is some way that's a way that's kind of been shown does work in the most recent, in kind of like the last couple of years. And you're going to hate me for bringing this up, but My Hero Academia.
I don't hate the production inherently of My Hero Academia. I just think the main character is shit. Calm the fuck down, here.
No, but My Hero Academia, the way they've produced that show has worked really, really well. They produce 1 to 2 cores every year, and I think that works really well. And I think potentially with a long-running series like Berzerk, that sort of thing could work quite well. This kind of split core idea. But I think potentially at this point you need a studio that's willing to work on it. And I don't know if there's any studio in Japan now that's seen the 3 lightning strikes and will be, yeah, we'll go for that.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult.
Is it like do you reckon it's got that cursed fucking reputation? Ben, don't make jokes on me. We're gonna get. But
ladies and gentlemen, Ben has just posted a picture in the chat of Generabuchi.
It's not.
It's Generabuchi. It's Generabuchi.
Wait, is it not?
No!
It's fucking Billy, the super best friends editor.
Oh, right, my bad.
Hence why only Ben and I got it. Right, let's say to cap off the Berzerk conversation then. The main thing I'm really looking for then is, do we agree that a slideshow anime is possible to be good? I think it is.
Absolutely.
Monogatari. I think so, mixed with animation. However, I think you will never surpass. Like, I think it will be good, but I never think everyone will actively admit to it.
It will be
some animation.
It will be good in spite of its lack of animation, as opposed to being good because it lacks animation.
You'd have to compensate it with other like, for example, if you're doing it as a slideshow, it would have to compensate with like art style, of the fact that the art style would have to look super gorgeous and whatnot.
And moving on to the next point of proof that an anime PowerPoint can be good, the Monogatari series is a fantastic series, and that has PowerPoint written all over it.
Yeah.
And that, gentlemen, is how I... fuck it, I messed up.
Well, yeah, we're keeping that.
That's your one chance!
First thing, anyway, we were just concluding on Berzerk, and like the long and short of it obviously is...
Can we genuinely start again for not something else, please?
No!
No!
No, you ruined it.
You ruined
No,
it.
so
You had
it's
one shot.
probably
Bleep out,
a Berserk.
bleep out the swear words.
A Berserk adaptation is possible but require far more money than is actually feasible, and it's down to studio mismanagement, a lack of monetary budget, and misused resources that creates the Berserk of today. Is
It's
that
also
fair?
down to the fact that we're 4 British twats that have no clue how anime's made.
I've watched that one show about anime being made. You know, the one.
Dude, I love Shirabuku.
Oh man, Shirobako is a fucking amazing anime.
Shirabako's great, but that is for another day. Look, just on the subject of shows that work as a slideshow, as a PowerPoint, the Monogatari series is absolutely fantastic. So can we talk about that, please?
I will remain silent once again for 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. We'll be quick, Alistair. Get onto your Highschool DxD round.
Listen, don't worry. There's gonna talk about a fucking lolly show for a little bit, Alistair.
Look, literally, the point I want to make is just using Monogatari as an example.
Not defensible. I like Monogatari. It's not defensible.
Okay, no, I'm not defending it. What I'm saying is the reason why Monogatari works really, really well as a show, despite the fact, if you've ever read the light novels, this is an adaptation podcast. If you've ever read the light novels are about 60% dialogue.
I just wanted you to turn around and go, "Oh, dog shit." Just wait, what?
No, it is. They are like 60% dialogue. I'm currently reading Kabuki Monogatari, and in it, the main character describes the show, like the books themselves, literally within the books, as being like conversation drama. Like they admit within the book that there's a lot of talking, and I think the way the adaptation works so well is keeping all that talking in, but by putting in just massively interesting visuals and really emotive voice acting. And I think a show like Berzerk or like Monogatari can work if it has stuff like that in place.
I concur. I've only seen Baka Monogatari and the one where Araragi actually gets turned into a vampire. I like
Kizu.
both. Kizu Monogatari. I like both of them a great deal. I definitely say that Monogatari are probably one of my favorite animes ever made. And I will say, I hate the sexual content, but whatever.
No, it's weird.
Don't worry. Like, I've accepted shows for worse than that. And
Dude, I agree with you on that bit.
I will say the animation in Monogatari is nice, but it is clearly there to fucking like the random cuts and shit. You can say style as much as you like. That is limitation creating art because they realized they had to animate something that was 60% script.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think the issue also essentially became Baka Monogatari and Kizu Monogatari are the least talky books out of the entire Monogatari series. They get more talky as it goes on.
They do.
And Baka Monogatari sold ridiculously well. I'm pretty sure it still holds the record today of the best-selling anime on DVD and Blu-ray.
Quite possibly.
It's sold insanely well. It sold millions of copies or something stupid.
One of the big things that really sells it to everyone, though, is it is Shaft being Shaft, and Shaft are renowned as ufotable levels of it's not quite ufotable action porn. Shaft is known for their character and character porn and ability to conversation porn.
They have the ability to put the most interesting visuals on the screen for something that is nothing. For the most nothing of scene, they can make that thing.
Monogatari has a 24-minute conversation in an airport just between two people, with one of them going, "Will you come and help me?" and the other one being like, and the gist. That's the gist of the conversation. It goes on for 24 minutes and is one of the best scenes ever made.
Excellent, because I love that. I love the section where he is literally sat. Like it becomes conversation. You then get an entire section where it's not even a conversation. It's just him talking to himself.
It's just him sat in a toilet thinking about how he can make an excuse to help her because he wants to.
He's not even moving. He's just literally sat on a seat, just thinking, amazing to watch.
Somewhat alarmingly, let's bring up an actual question rather than jerking off.
Kaiki is best girl, yes.
Yeah, you go tomorrow, Beak. Yes, follow me, man. No, it's the fucking. I was gonna say. So earlier we had the comment about the fact that Tokyo Ghoul did its own thing with the adaptation. I think you'd have to be fairly churlish to deny the fact that Monogatari did its own thing with the adaptation in terms of stylistic choices.
Oh, absolutely.
So
of course, the writer.
Can I finish?
No.
Fuck. I'd argue it's an example of a show where another author or director has taken from an author or writer and turned it into their own thing and just sort of melded into something beautiful. And it just I just wanted to raise the question of should that be more? Should that be less? Should there be more shows where it's the director takes the source material and goes, I'm gonna do my own thing with this shit?
No. I think it should be fine if okayed by the writer. Much. I think if the writer looked at it and went, that Shaft being Shaft, oh my god, yes, golden thumbs up. It's like Ufotable, Unlimited Blade Works is not a faithful adaptation to the root of the visual novel.
Fate Zero is not a faithful adaptation of Fate, I'd argue, as well.
Fate Zero is not a faithful adaptation to the light novel of Fate Zero. It is, and Unlimited Blade Works to some respects is, but the amount of scenes, the amount of conversations that are altered, the amount of bits that are different slightly, the amount of extra bits that have been added that weren't actually in the thing at all, the amount of parts that were removed, the amount of conversations that are suddenly completely different, and that's all because of Ufotable taking the executive decision to change the story and bend certain characters around to make it a better anime adaptation and make it better for that style. And that sort of thing, and the sort of thing of Monogatari, and the sort of thing of some other shows that I would list, but right now I can't be asked to think of.
It just
works.
It just goes to show that talent transcends medium.
Other times it doesn't, and that's
I will get onto that
the same
when it doesn't
as
work.
Any anime in any regards. Sometimes anime works when you make it as a show. Other times, turns out that idea was shit but sounded good on paper. It's the same with this. Turns out that change sounded great on paper or sounded like people would really enjoy it. People didn't. Other times, people really did.
Because people are idiots.
Yeah, I think.
Ben, I feel it's also worth saying that all of our listeners, both of them, are now probably reeling from the revelation that Fate Zero was a light novel.
Fate Zero, light novel.
Both are viewers.
Well,
both our viewers, Hugh and I don't know, one of my friends.
Your dad now.
Your dad, yeah.
Phil.
Sup, Phil? Call me.
No,
he'll probably ask me for your number now.
Cool. But the thing that makes Fate Zero, adapting Fate Zero's light novel, correct me if I'm wrong, is it only one light novel?
No, it's 4.
Is it 4?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Apocrypha's 5.
Ooh.
Because apparently that had 5.
Which is therefore 25% more quality.
Yeah. Everybody knows the more you make, the better it gets. Just ask Berzerk.
Well,
tell me why.
Highschool DxD's first run has 25.
Don't you dare. We're not on that yet. Down, boy. Down.
My counter to Highschool DxD is just going to be to compare it to Sword Art Online.
I'm just gonna.
I have the perfect comparison for Highschool DxD, but we'll
is it Donald Trump?
No.
Shall we just get this out of the way? Because
are we done with Monogatari now?
I don't want to be, but me and you will circle jerk ourselves another time.
This is the
inevitably dedicated shit fucking podcast.
Ben love this show with a burning passion, but I think we have been planning this podcast for the past week and a bit since I was away, and the moment someone suggested this podcast, instantaneously Alastair was like, I'm gonna talk DxD.
And then I'm here like, oh god, I just want to talk about
He was
Fire.
like, I'm gonna talk DxD immediately followed by, I fucking hate men.
So
That's
Alex,
it.
so yeah, exactly. So Alastair, tell us why High School DxD is the worst anime of all time.
No. My thing is why season 3 is bad and why season 4 is good. So, yeah.
Because they followed the light novel. Sorted. Cool. Let's talk about that street.
Oh my god.
This is gonna get us arrested.
This is actually a perfect segue. I like how Hugh's one condition when initially joining the podcast was I want to be on the podcast, but I don't really want to be on one where you discuss High School DxD.
What he said was edgy.
You've come a long way!
Hugh, I don't know anything about. I'm literally reading the Wikipedia entry for High School DxD now. Like,
Is the
Okay.
first line, it's trash.
No, but the thing
But
is, yes,
it-
it's
it-
trash,
it is
but it's
not
the
what it
best
should be.
Not the
trash.
sort you throw out in case a homeless man comes across it and then you ruin him.
yep.
No, but the thing is, yes, it may be trash, but it's the best trash.
Oh no, the best trash
No.
is yet to come.
Oh god. Yeah, no, essentially the story, for those who don't know, it does have a plot.
Wait, this is the first one.
It's got two large pendulous.
This is the first. I like how Alastair's taken the reins here of every other show we've talked about. Fuck the plot. We'll not talk about. We'll just talk about the show. High School DxD comes up. Oh, we're going full synopsis, boys.
What?
We're
I need to prove that it has plot.
To be fair,
I like the
Alastair
fact- I
has
like
been
the
lying
fact-
in wait like a praying fucking mantis with giant.
I like the
teeth.
fact that the two shows that we talked about before this were shows renowned for their plots.
And now we're talking about another one that's renowned for its plot of another type.
Both of them.
Hey, Alastair, go ahead.
Oh god. So okay, so it's. I'm not going to go through the plot. If you want to
Good.
know the plot, you can read it. But the thing that makes High School
watch it.
DxD good is one of the things I like about it, and it's the best description I've heard of the show, is that imagine if you take your normal shonen like show, take the
Alright,
power
JoJo.
of friendship out, and replace it with the power of boobies.
That is hell on earth.
I'm
Man, that sounds like you took JoJo and replaced the power of manly men with the power of fucking soy boys.
Like literally the power of estrogen-filled soy.
Oh god.
It's not ham on energy, it's soy energy. And Baron Zappelli is this little fucking like. Baron Zappelli is a fucking hospital patient who walks around. At one point, he tries to punch that frog, and everyone's surprised when it does no damage. It's only because of how weak his testosterone-lacking muscles are.
I want to take. Oh, sorry, Hugh.
Baron Zappelli just looks like Sieg from Apocrypha.
Yeah.
I want to take a minute, and can we switch around the fact of if JoJo instead of Baron Zappelli taught fucking Joseph, or is it Jonathan? It's Jonathan.
It's
Sorry.
Jonathan,
Taught Jonathan the trick of hammering him that to kick ass. He instead taught him to just grab a woman's boobs randomly. Man, would that have been a shit piece of fuck?
Dude, imagine that, but he can talk to them and he can make their clothes fall off. Alistair.
Oh god. Anyway,
This
so,
is already disappointing.
I have
High
seen
School-
High School DxD, so I am allowed to shit bash it.
Well, the thing that I want to use as an example for is a good example to show like within one show you have a good adaptation of the source material and a bad adaptation of the source material in one show. So
Dude,
it's
I
just
could've done
easy
that
to
with
use
Mina
as an
May
example.
K.
So seasons 1, 2, and 3 are made by a studio called TNK.
More like TNA!
Yeah. It's nice.
The first 2 seasons came out like really quickly after like each other. Like there was literally only a season of anime between them. I think the first one came out in autumn, winter was off, and then they brought the second season out in spring. So they're very close together. They were pretty faithfully adapted. TNK changed a couple of things, pretty fairly minor stuff. One of the there's nothing really ridiculous that they changed. Season 3 came out quite a few years later, and
2015 summer.
Yeah.
Spring.
And the
Don't ask me how I know that.
basically, the writer of the light novels and the director of the anime had a dispute about what they should do, because so far every season they adapted 2 light novels per season, and they knew that long-term plan, if they wanted to go for a reasonable sized chunk and end in a nice place, it would be at the end of volume 12 of the show, which left an issue because volume 8 is a book of short stories, so it doesn't work to do. So they had to do 3 in a season at some point. 11 and 12 fit together, you can't split those up. 9 and 10 go together, so you can't really split those up. So the only logical place to actually combine volumes was 5, 6, and 7. And the way the light novel writer wanted to do that was by still sticking to essentially the light novel plot, but just going through it a bit quicker, like a lot of light novel adaptations do. For example, the most recent season of Full Metal Panic does 3 volumes rather than 2, but they do the same things in the same order. They just cut a couple of scenes out that aren't that important to the plot. Whereas the director of Highschool DxD, Born, as in season 3, wanted to change it because he thought that the reason the people like Highschool DxD is for the action, essentially, the action and dark grittiness stuff, and fan service, obviously. But the light novel writer said, no, the reason my light novel readers like this is because they like the characters, they like the character development, they like all of it as a package in one thing. So they had a disagreement. Of course, the director of the anime is going to win. So he created a mishmash where things are out of order, changed to a point of missing so many important things out that mean that are so useful, needed for later on, and adding 3 episodes onto the end that completely destroy continuity of the show to the point where you can't actually fix it.
And they had to go back and recreate the episode at the beginning of the next season,
so
in order to actually rectify it.
So essentially, I don't know what happened. I know that the light novel writer said, after the backlash they got from the fans after season 3, the fact that it was bad, the light novel writer basically went, I'm pulling the show from you. That's it. You're not getting it anymore. And TNK didn't make another show for 3 years. Then he's been searching for a new studio, and he got season 4 made by Passione. And that season is the most faithful adaptation of the light novels, to the point where it just assumes that the 3rd season happened the way it should have done, and so it confuses people who haven't read the light novels a bit. They had to put in an episode 0 that essentially retconned the last 3 episodes of the 3rd season, so they basically don't exist. And yeah, but the season 4 is done really, really well. It's some of my favourite light novels from the entire series. Now, most people have the issue they have with it is they have the issue of the art style. They complain the art styles are different and they don't like the new art style. I agree
People are typically wrong about that.
I agree with some of the things in the sense of, yes, the original art style looked a bit more sophisticated, looked a bit more mature, if that makes sense. Whereas the new one is more simplistic and
It's more moe.
Yeah, it's more moe. It's more it kind of takes away the sophisticatedness of what Highschool DxD had.
Sophisticatedness in air quotes.
Yes.
Sophisticate. What the fuck, man?
I'm sorry. It took me like 2 seconds to just suddenly process the fucking fact. I'm so genuinely saying, with all belief, the sophisticatedness of High School DxD. I watched the first 3 seasons, and the second fucking arc in the first season is a fucking priest girl being kidnapped, stripped, and nearly raped by a demon.
That's the first arc, Ben.
Sophistication. Much wow.
No, but I meant
like
style.
The fact that Ben is doing this, and your argument, Alastair, is that's the third arc.
No, that's the first arc.
Oh right.
No,
My
no.
bad.
I meant as a sophisticated style. The thing that I think High School DxD makes it better than all of the ecchi shows that are out there is the way it does it. Is I find other ecchi shows that I've watched a lot. The word I use is it feels rapey. Is
Bible Black.
I think
Bible
like
Black isn't rapey. It's only the first arc.
Testament of a Sister New
Minor
Devil
horny.
is literally a light novel that was written to try and essentially take all like the fans that DxD has and like try and grab some of that popularity off it, because it's essentially very much the same kind of thing.
It sounds like an eroge.
However, the difference is the main character is much more like powerful, and every single time he does any like scenes of fan service scenes, it feels like he's literally raping the girl. Whereas when Issei does it, he's like,
Wait, which show is this? I missed this.
Testament of a Sister New Devil.
Oh right, okay.
Hugh's making notes for later.
Putting that on MAL.
Dude, I was playing with a Pokeball. I'm so sorry.
Anyway, no, but Issei's as a main character.
Alastair, you need to put that on the screen here. So
Sorry,
you
I've been
know
quiet.
what Ben is tweeting about.
Lewis, have you been making that while I've been talking?
I have been quietly making that for about a minute and a half. Yeah.
The Ben face reveal.
I'm literally gonna put that up now every single time Ben starts laughing. Oh god.
Oh, I look like a member of Sut House, and that makes me happy.
Oh, I'll go. Well,
Alastair, continue with your
And
stuff.
where the fuck were we? I've been paying attention for the past minute.
the thing that makes High School DxD work in the sense of it makes it feel slightly more innocent is Issei. He never initiates anything. He never does anything. It's always the girls that do it to him.
You mean it's NTR?
Well, no, it isn't. Because he wants it, but he never acts on it, is the point. He doesn't act on it. He doesn't physically do it. He's a pervert who's a complete, like, scaredy cat to do anything, and he won't do it. So
We stray further from God's light.
anyway, moving on. Yeah, no, so loads of people complain about the art style and whatnot. I think the art style's fine, you just need to get used to it, essentially. The reason they did the art style, this goes back to the animation point earlier that we made for Berzerk. The reason they made that art style like a bit more simple is because a lot of the stuff that happens now in the light novels, there's a lot more bigger fights, there's a lot more like epic fight scenes, and those require more animation, so they made a simpler art style to make the animation easier to do, because the old art style was quite complicated, and you can see in the later seasons that like in the third season some of the fights were lacking in choreography and whatnot because they couldn't do it with the art style because they just didn't have the budget, which is what annoys me when some people comment, oh, I don't like the animation, which is like, no, learn the difference between the word animation and art style because they're two different things.
Yes. This is something I want. Yuri on Ice, people are like, oh, it had great animation. You're just like, no, it had really nice looking bits at times.
Yeah, good style.
Yes.
It had good style, and it had good animation at times, and other times it didn't.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was it.
I was saying this literally applies to everything. I mean, my classic go-to example of this is the fact that like art fidelity and style are two different things. It's the reason why Team Fortress 2 still looks good.
Aye.
It's like it's just the thing of like you have to tell the difference. Animation is how something looks in motion. Art style is literally if you took a frame and you say that looks. If you took a frame of something and say, well, that looks crap, that's the art style. It's not the animation.
Fate Apocrypha episode 22 is a great example. You pause that bit at any point and it looks weird, but fluidly, it's absolutely amazing.
It's like when Konosuba came out, Konosuba season 2, and you got all those screenshots of Aqua's face looking weird. It's like, well, yeah, you're taking it in between frame of an animation. Of course, it's going to look bad.
Also in season 2, they kind of did that almost on purpose.
Well, they did it comedically. Is essentially what they did.
Yeah,
it was a stylistic choice. But yeah, no, it's interesting when you look at the High School DxD community of people that there's a very clear divide of people who like season 4 and people who don't. And a lot of the people who like season 4 are people who've read the light novels, and people who don't like it are people who are anime onlys. Partly because they're confused and they don't know what's going on, which a lot of them have had to ask light novel readers what was missed out in Born, as in the 3rd season, for them to actually understand what's going on, because they make references to things that haven't happened, because the anime has just had to assume these things have happened, because otherwise it doesn't work, because they can't continue the story. Which is why you should try. For God's sake!
What is this? A crossover episode?
No.
Oh,
Alastair, Alastair, I'm not gonna lie. I think High School DxD probably deserves everything it's got coming to it with regards to its reputation. I just think that there's different degrees of reputation. And I think people are just getting justifiably annoyed about a show not being as good as they hoped it would. But ultimately, it's tiggled anime biddies.
You're gonna get angry.
I think people shouldn't get angry for the fact they should be happy in the sense of it's not a terrible adaptation, and the fact that they've managed to get a 4th season, which most shows barely get
that is
2.
rare.
And
Yeah.
this is an ecchi show that doesn't get seasons.
12. Yeah, well,
Exactly.
most get one series of 12 episodes.
I did the math. It has at the moment. I mean, it's going to change in a month's time, but at the moment, it only has 1 episode less than Sword Art Online, which is, I mean, considering that like Sword Art Online has 50 episodes, High School DxD has 49.
Well,
are you including the spin-off though, and the movie?
I'm not including. I'm not including
and
OVA.
the other movie.
I'm not including spin-offs or. I'm just thinking the main show.
This seems a nice segue as I crack open a bottle of Cabaret. Oh fuck me, I'm French, and decide to
Cabaret Sauvignon. Is this the northern man? Ooh, I must be Frenchy.
Is this the obligatory Sword Art Online
I bought
section?
this down at the most French of the supermarkets. Sainsbury's.
I take the opportunity to turn away from High School DxD.
Yeah, I thought Tesco.
And we talked about a show with incest in it. Great, Ben.
No show for Tesco's. This is USD Scone.
Ben,
That was actually more French.
I bought this at the most French of supermarkets.
You're going away from a show without incest to a show with incest.
Really, you argue High School DxD does not have incest?
No, because he doesn't have a sister.
Right, allow me to Google High School DxD incest.
Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Well, look at that.
Fine, show me a picture, Ben.
My favorite one is on the High School DxD Wikia, where there's a user blog which says Sword Birth 18, incest versus homosexuality.
Oh, I'm back.
Oh wait, Alastair. No, Alastair. I concede. It's fanfic about Rias and her dad banging.
Oh God!
Please don't put that in my head.
My internet died for about a minute, and I come back to this.
It's fine. We were going to segue to Sword Art Online, but then I decided we needed more We need more High School DxD.
Well, no, it's because I made the comment of the fact that Ben wants to get away from get away from High School DxD, so he's disappearing from a show that doesn't have incest in it to a show that does.
I'd argue that High School DxD, the show that, as you actively said earlier, and I also said, the first arc has a woman of the cloth, a woman of God, show. Get nearly forcibly raped by demons.
Yeah, but then he gets physically punched in the face ridiculously hard by the main character.
Fantastic. There was still a rape attempt. However, I dare say Sword Art Online's, there's a pervy guy who pervs on a girl in a hospital bed, and there's a guy who thinks, I might have feelings for this girl. Oh, wait, no, she's my sister. No, I don't. I'd argue you can't really defend that while sitting there on the show of, man, look at this guy trying to force this girl to marry him using his power. What a great show!
I'm not gonna lie. I was busy reading High School DxD fanfiction for a second there. Is Alastair actually trying to attack Sword Art Online?
Alastair is attacking Sword Online by saying we're switching from High School DxD into a show with incest. Whoa!
Whatever. My fucking right. Get that shit out of my Christian Minecraft server. No.
I'm sorry, Lewis. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm fucking God.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, it is creepy in Sword Art Online, like fucking Elfheim Online or whatever the fuck it's called, when the fucking rapier bitch ends up getting strung up and tentacle raped by elf dude. Yeah, sure, whatever. Like High School DxD, literally in the chat.
That's the calmest response to that.
Literally in the chat. In Discord, worse has been posted in the past 20 minutes.
What, you mean my lovely quotes?
Just all of it, if I'm being honest. That's just like, come on. Right, I am in no way defending Alpha Online. I am saying that you are comparing apples and oranges. Both of them can get raped.
And silence.
That was perfect. That was actually perfect. Nah.
It's just four blokes not knowing quite what to say after that.
Listen,
Can I say anything which doesn't get me fired?
Alastair, I will say, like, literally, come on, you like a trashy show, deal with it. You don't need to attack other people's trashy shows. That only makes the world less trashy place.
That wasn't actually attack, it was a joke. It was just a joke. I meant that as a joke with sarcasm.
That's how the 100-year war happened.
That was my attempt at a sarcastic joke. Obviously, it didn't work.
Big win, yes. No,
very funny.
Now, to be fair, Sword Art Online is actually a pretty good example here because that is a show where the first part of the anime, in Aincrad, is really good.
I would argue it isn't as good as people say it is, but yes.
I don't want to get into this argument here, but what I will say is it's interesting because that first part of that season is not in the light novel. The light novel begins on floor 75. There are some flashbacks, but for the most part, the entire first part of that first season is all the anime.
I thought that was the first light novel.
No, the first light novel starts at level 75. So my friend Joe has told me, so I'll blame him if this is wrong. But it begins at 475, right as they're going up against the bone scythe dude, and it pretty much goes from there.
It's Skeletron.
Yeah, Skeletron.
How does that work? Because then that means it's 2 light novels of flashbacks.
It's not too. Well, I don't know. That's what Joe has told me.
The Aincrad arc is 2 light novels, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So how can it start at 75 and then when the Aincrad arc literally ends on 75?
I don't know. How could Fate Zero release as a prequel?
I mean, that means it's 2 volumes of flashbacks. That's essentially what I'm saying.
Fate Zero is 4.
I mean, I haven't read the Sword Art Online light novels, so I don't know.
Oh my word! No.
Yes, Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online 1 starts at floor 74, and Sword Art Online 2 Aincrad is 4 short stories revolving around Kirito that take place in a flashback.
Oh, is that the fishing? Is that with the fishing?
It is the fishing, I believe.
It is the Christmas short story.
The Christmas one is much better. The Christmas one is actually really well done in the light novel.
The Christmas one is needed, really.
The Christmas one, the Christmas one, the marriage one.
Oh, the frigging murder on the Orient Express one.
Let's have a look. The one where he gets where he teams up and gets called the Black Swordsman.
The back alley cat.
No, the one where he meets fucking Lolly Girl and escorts her to get her pet resurrected.
Oh, don't.
Let's have a look, and then the Warmth of the Heart.
No.
And the one where he gets the fucking dragon material to forge his new sword. Those 4 in the short stories. Everything else, I'd argue, is really good content and is entirely the anime.
When 16.5.
Right after my... I don't know. Like, I thought,
arguably the best chapter of Sword Art Online.
I'm so confused. What?
16.5 is an actual...
Hugh. 16.5 is an officially released chapter by the official author of Sword Art Online, who released it as chapter 16.5 in between 16 and 17, obviously.
Guess that.
It describes a full sex scene between Kirito and Asuna in their cottage, officially written by the author, and holds the infamous line of, "Oh yes, Asuka, I am coming inside you. I am dumping 2 years worth of semen inside you."
Yes!
It's the scene that takes place after they... after he, like, confesses the thing before he nearly gets killed, and then... They go back to hers, and she mistakenly thinks that he wants sex. Is essentially, it's the scene that's after that.
But it's a Sword Art Online's an interesting example there, actually, because then afterwards, because then afterwards they faithfully adapt the light novels, and then it shits the bed. So, like, I don't know what the fuck happened there. Presumably there was one guy with an original idea on that team who somehow convinced the others to let him take lead for 10 episodes, at which point everyone else, like, came to their senses, told him to go away, and then it became shit again.
Well,
wait, hang on a minute. This hasn't got cousins in it. Get out!
Wait, get out! This is my fetish!
Sword Art Online becomes such a weird fucking clusterfuck, and the actual initial premise is so good.
Yeah.
Especially for its time, and especially for the quality of the release. I've read the light novels. It was quite a while ago. I can't even remember how long ago. That's probably due to my alcoholism, if nothing else. But
no, I'm not making that joke. No, I'm not. I was gonna make a joke.
I don't know. I know, Hugh. The fact that no one laughed or made a joke at that comment makes it more sad than anything else.
That was the intended effect. I thought the greatest joke would be your life.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh, Lewis, why'd you say this?
Bill, call your son.
My dad's name's William. I don't know how you know that, given he's not here either.
Not you idiot.
Williamson. Sorry. That was just me casually making a Reese's Neo reference. Anyway, Ben.
I can't remember what I was
fucking saying. I have a point to make then, which is obviously the light novel writer has realised that the first 2 light novels aren't the best because he's rewritten the Aincrad arc from scratch and re-released it.
Oh, he's rewritten it because it's the bit everyone sucks the dick off.
I'll say that alternatively he made... Right, let's be fair. Attack on Titan, right? Good manga, alright, you make an adaptation. Turns out this thing is the most pop anime since, like, fucking... I actually do not know or remember it previously more popular anime. So you know what you do? You make a train-based premise about the same thing, then 4 years later release season 2. No! Sword Art Online got it right. You made something good based on something else. What do? You cash that fucking cow. You make comic books. You make merchandise. You make video games. You make more anime. You make Netflix movies. You make everything you can. You rewrite the fucking source material to cash in on all that money.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
They made the right choice. I will never blame Sword Art Online's creators because they are so unbelievably wealthy.
Yeah, they
are smart businessmen.
I mean, my argument was, like, the thing with Sword Art Online, I haven't read the light novels, so I don't know what the light novels are like, but I would argue as an overall season, and when I'm saying season, I'm not talking about arc, I'm talking the 2 separate 25 episode runs. The second season, in my opinion, is better.
The second season's Gun Gale, right?
Yeah, Gun Gale and Mother's Rosario. is
Hunter Star is actually pretty good.
is a better season than the first season, in my opinion.
I still stand by the first season, and despite the fact that it gets a lot of shit, I watched that show and I thought it was decent.
I
watched it,
enjoyed some.
and I enjoyed the nice flick through. I watched the first half. I thought the first half was pretty great. It had interesting things. It was anime TM. Now that I'm older, I could look back and say the first half is just anime TM.
Oh yeah,
Exact follow the guidelines to make your popular show.
It's like rewatching Code Geass as much as I love it.
Exactly. But it was still it was still
I remember
it was still decent. And then we move on to the second season, which it's awkwardly incesty. It gets.
You mean
it
the
has
second arc, Ben?
Oh, fuck off!
They're two different things.
It has the awkward incesty bit. It has the awkward tentacly bit. It has the awkward fact that she gets licked by fucking, I don't know, King Arthur of the elves.
The true elf time online.
Yeah, sorry, it gets licked by Mordred elf.
To be fair, there is gravity torture, which I really liked, and that knife fight that he has with fucking Kaz.
The knife fight is
pretty good.
It's
pretty tense.
Exactly. But I go through and I pulled the good shit, and despite the fact there was a lot of shit, I'm like, oh, this is kind of bullshit. This is random bullshit. At the same time, I could kind of justify, yeah, but it's MMO bullshit. It's this level of, this is the sort of shit you get in MMOs where you pull some random twat shit out of nowhere, and then it just turns around and has the moments of, like there's people die a lot more in it, and the impact is still felt as if they died like they died in the first half, but they didn't die for real, and so they're a lot more liberal with the death. So if you forget that they just respawn and stuff like that, and look at it from just an MMO's perspective or something, it seems kind of tense because there's a shit ton more death and murdering of people. Like Kirito just straight starts murdering people in it.
He kills 3 people.
Well, yeah, exactly. It adds
he
to the sort
knows
of,
he does too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just adds to that sort of resolve from it. And if you just keep looking at it as an MMO, which it originally was, then that's fine, and you can push past that. And yeah, looking back on it, it's a bit shit and goes to crap and adds in all these tropes that didn't need to be there and gets super creepy. But it also ups the ante in its own way and still tries to still to its premise while trying to do something a bit different and
I like Sword Art. I think we all like Sword Art.
I give it stick, but I do like it. Like it was like I think it was like the 3rd or 4th anime I ever watched. I enjoyed it so much in the sense of I watch a lot of isekai now, so that goes to say something.
I will be watching the next season.
I will be watching the next season as well.
Not even for a meme. I'll just be watching the next season.
I'll watch the next season because I'm actually intrigued to see because it might be quite good. Because one, it's the longest arc that he's ever written because it takes up just as many light novels as the previous 2 seasons combined. Also, apparently, it's adapting the whole thing, which means it'll probably be 50 episodes long.
Oh god, I'm getting Black Clover flashbacks.
Black Clover's been extended, by the way. Black Clover's getting more episodes.
Among us not afraid to scream and really make his neighbours annoyed.
As you say after my cackling of the fucking underworld. But yeah. So Sword Art Online, the final summary bit of the second half of the first season, and why I don't really mind it, but I understand that it is shit. That they walk out of there, and the people from the thing are still friends, and there's a fucking 16-year-old boy who atrophied to fuck while in a game for 2 years just decides to hang out with a random fucking university student and a beefy as fuck black bartender and just chill out in a bar illegally for most of his day because fuck it, I nearly died.
And the other reason the second arc is also not so bad is because I'm gonna say it. The avatar of Leafa is better looking than Asuna.
I literally think no one in this podcast cares about women apart from you, Alastair. I'll say it now. Like,
I mean, I'm fine. I'm fine with
okay.
that. More waifus for me.
My favourite thing about the second half of that first season, just oh my god, I finally got out of that death game that nearly killed me. Oh look, more video games.
well, the thing which I always thought they should have done was
That makes
Sword
me
Art
giggle.
Online.
Let's redo it again!
Right, okay.
Somebody bring me my nerve gear.
Here's two aspects of Sword Art Online which I will say.
I kill people.
Well,
My question is, why didn't he go out and buy the device that can't kill him? And
hang on, right.
Did.
No, he
one thing I was
didn't.
one thing I was gonna say, which actually does sadden me, because you'll never get like I will never be able to make an isekai because like fuck me, they're so easy to make now that by the time I could get to the point to do one, it's never possible. But I think there's three aspects of Sword Art Online which they really could have capitalized on to make it more Generabuchi like.
Oh,
The
God!
death.
Alright, right, no, seriously, right. AKA something I'd like. Alright, so number one, they never cover. Ben, why are you just like fucking slapping your dick against the microphone?
Oh, I'm pulling the head off my deodorant and putting it back on with incredible force. Just
Oh
for
my
own
god,
amusement.
yeah, that's. I'm sorry if I'm not engaging enough for you.
No,
Ben.
this conversation has made him sweat too
I am
much.
listening intently, more
Right.
so than the fucking Highschool DxD talk.
Here were some ideas I thought would work really well in a Sword Line scenario, which they never really covered. Number one, Kirito goes from being the most godlike entity in the world to coming out and becoming a muscle atrophied cripple. Surely there's some psychological bullshit there. Like where is the hero complex when he's like, I remember when I was in the fucking game and I was somebody.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Kind
was
of
a
gets
god.
that in the movie a bit.
Yeah.
But he was a god. He could have literally murdered people if he wanted, and
Yeah,
they could have done.
And now he needs physical therapy for his likely permanently damaged young body.
Dude,
like,
this is literally what happens in the abridged series.
Yes.
yeah, he goes mental. Yeah, but
Yeah.
so number two, obviously the impact of murdering people, and they cover it briefly in the light novel because in one of the light novels he hunts down members of fucking like Hallow, whatever it's called, the Murderer Covenant.
The Black
Where-
Hand. Or
Where,
something?
it's like, nah, that's Oblivion,
it's
mate.
Hollow Coffin.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Hollow
it is
Coffin.
For fuck's sake, how did I get Oblivion and Sword Art
I
Online?
was like, they cover it briefly, where in one of the books they just get sick and tired of Hollow Coffin and literally do a server-wide witch hunt for them, and basically Kirito ends up killing a couple of them, and like Asuka's like, wait, so you actually kill people? No, and he's like, they really give me much of a choice, and like he kind of
Laughing
awkwardly.
Coffin.
Laughing Coffin, and he awkwardly never sort of brings it up again, which I quite like as a humanizing thing. Now, here's the big one. Here's the really, really big one, alright, that I'm surprised they never covered, right? Here is a virtual reality game where it is literally life or death, and some of your friends are stuck in there. Where were the people who logged into Sword Art Online after it was revealed to be a permadeath game?
Oh my god.
That
There-
would be a good idea.
That is a whole isekai, right? So you're there, you're like, there's so many angles, right? So number one, you are literally some worthless neat, but you might be someone in this game, you could be a hero. Number two,
You could be a hero, or you could end them.
Number two, you worked late after school one day, and all of the friends in your guild logged on, and you are their healer. You log on afterwards as well, even after you see the news, because they need your help. So many characters in that.
Man, those people have more characterization than anyone in Highschool DxD.
Well, would you look at that? I'm a better writer than Alastair.
I would say no, you're incorrect.
I was actually going.
He took the bait.
I was going for such an honest point there, and then my mind literally, before I just opened my mouth to say it, went, or I could fuck with Alastair.
Oh, but yeah. So like, I think that there is a corner of the sort of which can still be taken, which is the post, like, sort of like, essentially the Madoka Magica to the magical girl genre, where it's been done so much to death. The only thing you can do to it now is make an effective, not parody of it. There's a difference where one of them works within the source material, the other works without the source material. Basically, where you make something which deliberately subverts your material while being an element of that material. If that makes sense.
I know
I
what
think-
you mean.
I think there is an isekai there for those people who logged in, and then it just goes beyond that. Like, it's like, it's been 6 years since people have been stuck into this virtual MMO. People are never going to get out. These fucking power gamers have fucking, made their artificial setup, and they're going to finish it. Like,
Man, You know, one thing I'd have fucking quite enjoyed to have seen if they went like that hard in it after like the 2 years. Just someone's there and they're quite a badass in the game, and then they just suddenly freeze, and then they just suddenly delete, and it's like, what the fuck happened? And you don't learn what
sorry,
happened.
internet.
Oh.
No, that's what I meant. Just like, oh, sorry, internet cut out, guys.
Well,
Fucking, yeah.
Either internet cut out, they're dead now, or they just fucking died in real life because they've been lay still for 2 years and no one really gave a shit to preserve them, or family just said pull the plug.
Mom, it's an online game. I can't pause it.
Mom! I'll switch off the internet, then you'll come down. Mom! I will die! Oh, it's alright.
You've been late for dinner for 2 years!
It's like what's happening, Geraldine? Oh, he's playing with his friends again. Again?
Man, there must have been a minimum of about 100 people who got pissed off at them not responding to dinner, unplugged the internet to teach them a lesson, and they died.
No, I'm pretty sure they say that happened.
Well, they say that happened. That already like 100 people have died because family members have pulled the plug.
Yeah, they do say. Also, one of my favorite people that kill themselves, like, you literally have infinite health in the starting zone, you dumb cunts. Like,
just literally hang out in the starting zone and just be like,
just wait. Or my personal favorite detail of the fact that, like, just to cap off Sword Art Online, I will also say this: Sword Art Online is the worst game from a game design perspective ever made.
Oh,
it's terrible.
Basement.
Appalling. No. But here's my big one. Here's your permanent death game. Why would you make it so that way enemies scale with level? You'd have this level 50 blacksmith just getting insta killed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not becoming Mother's Basement. I refuse, unless I will die before that happens.
I still fucking love that the Smith can basically just succeed without ever doing combat, because they sit there leveling through their bonus actions and earning a metric fuck ton of money because no one else wants to die and doesn't know what to do. And they're like, bitch, it's an MMO. I just hit this sword enough times and then I got better at it.
It's like, well, what do you mean you skilled enchanting? Like... Anyway, I think that's our move off of Sword Art Online.
Onto the rest of Isekai.